we got to work on something here because
I thought it was perfect timing.
It
Seriously.
was, except for it was the perfect timing for the video to start playing, and I realized I couldn't mute it. So,
Okay, so
it's like she counted me down, like I gotta mute the other video.
So we need to have our total intro needs to be about 45 seconds, so then there's more time.
Yeah.
For those of you always wondering why sometimes there's so many ads at the beginning of it, it's Dan's fault. Seriously, it's Dan's fault.
Got to pay for something somehow.
Yeah, bandwidth's not free.
No. But anyway, thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday evening to come join us and hang out with John and I. We've been talking a little bit about what's been going on and some different things that might be thrown your way. And so we thought, tonight, perfect opportunity to go ahead and do that. Because as last week came, if you got the email on Thursday, tonight's topic was to be announced. And then out of nowhere, John threw a 180 at me and said, we're going to talk about this.
We're going to talk about this, but there's a variety of topics we're going to be hitting. We're going to be talking about how our needs are higher to be more flexible today with the people who are calling for events. We're going to discuss that a little bit. For those of you who follow my personal Facebook page, mentioned today having a conversation with the folks at Zoom. So we're going to kind of dig into that a little bit and touch base. I'll be doing another video on that tomorrow with more information. Some people are sharing on that thread some of the things that's happening in their world. So we'll be combining all that into a video for tomorrow. And there was something else. I don't remember what it was. That we'll figure it out as we go along. So yeah. So what brought this topic up tonight, Dan, is let's see. So since last Monday, I've booked 2 weddings for this fall, and I have had, I think, 1, 2, 3. I've had 6 or 8 inquiries for weddings. A couple of them were 2021s, but most of them were 2020 events. Just all of a sudden, and of course here in Minnesota, where we're based out of, they opened up so bars and restaurants could have half capacity or something to that effect for seating, and that's what meant that venues could have. We can't let folks congregate, and we can't have people going and dancing yet. But there can be music. They can have live music, or they can have some things with that. So that's kind of a cool thing. Now it's just try to figuring out, what can be done. And this is really where that flexibility comes in. Because as a person who called, you would swear that the conversations were that they could do whatever they wanted. It's like, yes, we're going to have 7,000 people, and we're going to crowd them into a 4x4 bedroom, and it's going to be great. And we want sound and lights, and we want to go till 6 a.m. Yeah. Ooh, fun. Kind of.
Well, that actually would sound kind of fun. It just, unfortunately, it's a situation where it's not advised, permitted.
Yeah, permitted is probably the best way to say that. And to show that is that there have been events and venues that have gotten calls by the police to come in, and they have gotten fines because they have not enforced the social distancing in their venue. And he just talked about, I think, 2 or 3 of them on the news from Minnesota from this past weekend, that the bar had a DJ going and there were 200 people on the dance floor, and they showed a picture. It was like it was last year. Mm-hmm. And how do, in that case, it was the bar who had to pay the fine. But, how are they going to handle that when it happens at weddings? So far at weddings, people have been pretty respectful from what I've been hearing here in Minnesota, that they haven't, the guests just aren't dancing indoors like they were. But the flexibility side, we've got brides who have, and we kind of maybe touched about this a little bit last week, with the unreal expectations that we just know can't happen.
Yeah.
And how can a person be flexible, supportive, and make it a positive experience for them? And that's the part that I was struggling as we're having these conversations, is that part of me which want to reach through the phone and say, no, you know better. It's not going to happen that way. Don't be that way. Because I almost feel that a couple of the gals and what they were describing, it's not going to be able to happen in that specific, the way they want it to happen. And they're setting themselves up for this huge disappointment. And yet a person needs to be flexible because this is the day that they want to get married.
Yeah. I think anytime we go into this situation, you want to have a candid conversation with them, and just try and reach out to this idea of, you know, let's talk about everything. Let's talk about what you envision. Let's talk about what you want, and let's talk about how, you know, I can help you have that to happen. Okay, now that we've laid this on the table and we've painted this picture, what happens if Joe Government decides to come along and say you can't have this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way to kind of keep that flexible without having it come back on you per se is to really kind of paint the picture of, listen, it's not my decision towards this, but if the decision comes down from someone above, whether it's the, you know, and I wouldn't even throw the venue in there, I'd really make it like, you know, somebody completely disassociated with their wedding. What is your game plan? Where, you know, what is your go-to?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've got to have this understanding of, you know, just because they want it and just because somebody promised them that it can happen doesn't mean that some outside force is going to permit it to.
And I think that outside force, there's great examples of that are happening where you have an employee at a place that comes down with COVID, and there's, you know, restaurants that are just all of a sudden they're just closing. We're closing for 10 days, closing for 3 days, closing for whatever. One of them I just heard about today, not here, but about an hour away. They're closing. Well, let's see. They closed. It was Friday morning that they announced it. They just lost another big weekend of summer. You know, these types of things are going to be happening. So when you're talking about it may close at no fault, you know, something may happen as an outside thing. It could happen. And how, you know, yeah, we can be flexible. We can change or maybe move to a different venue or move to a different situation. But I struggle because when we were in coaching and such, that one of the things that when we were trying to, we have a player there, the activity's going on, and if I'm going to get in their face and I'm trying to say, you need to be, you know, driving the lane and doing da 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 da. If I'm face to face with them, I kind of lose them. But if I can turn them around and have it so we're side by side, and I can say, okay, see now how you come down the lane and you can do this and you can go that way, side by side, where we're kind of more of a partnership, you seem to get a better response from people. Similar to the wedding situation. If I can get in a situation where the bride feels like I'm on her side and we're a team going forward and we built this trust. And I think that's the part of flexibility that we need to really work on, is building that trust. But how do you build your trust in a situation like we have today? It seems to be kind of a different world than it was 2 years ago in building that relationship and trust.
I don't know if I'd say that. I actually almost feel like it's a little bit easier to build the trust because, you know, we've stripped away a lot of the interferences that are going on in our lives. You know, whether you've been stuck at home or whether you've been in an area that's opened up for a little bit, you're still kind of been in that situation where you're reaching for those connections with people. You want those connections. And so when you're having a sit down or a teleconference with a couple and you're talking about their visions, you're creating that connection with that talk.
Mm-hmm.
Just having that conversation, you're making a connection where I think sometimes before, because of so much that was going on, it was very easy for them to kind of get distracted of, oh, I've got X, Y, and Z projects to do at work. And, you know, I've got to do this and this and this for, you know, my nephew's baseball game is coming up and I've got to run 50 other places. So even though they're at the meeting and even though they might be face to face with you, their brain is still going a mile a minute. So reaching in and just running that connection, I think, has a greater impact maybe now than it used to before.
So do you think to make that connection, are we exposing or digging into more of a personal side of it? Or is it a quiet confidence that we're trying to exude? What's helping us make that connection today that's maybe something we weren't utilizing before, beyond just the less attention, competing for less of their attention?
Well, I think the confidence is definitely going to be your game because we've talked about this when everything started to happen. The last thing you want to do is to go into a situation and seem desperate. When we finally got to open up, you don't want to go in there and just seem like the world is ending for you if you do not get this wedding, because it's going to give you the wrong air. And so yeah, having that quiet confidence as you go in is going to help the demeanor between the two. It's going to put them a little bit more at ease because they do have some fears, especially if they're still talking this year. I think with any with any um, self-awareness, there's a chance that they still might get postponed.
Yeah.
And so they, they might be way back in their head, but it's still there. And so I think how we connect with them in how we come in, but then also digging into that personal, getting a chance to know who they are, because for the past 3 months, that's what they've been doing. They've been focusing on who they are and what does this mean? And maybe they've been working, but maybe they haven't. And so they're trying to kind of piece all this together. And for some, if they haven't been working or haven't been working much, or even better, if they've been working from home, they've had a little bit more time maybe to think about this wedding deal that they've got coming up, because, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go out to eat. So, we made dinner and we talked about our plans over dinner. Or
So
we
you
talk,
think because they're able to put more thought and time in their plans, especially if they had something and they've had to move, do you think that they're going to be looking at simpler, or do you think they're going to be looking at maybe more of a more elaborate or more of a production, but yet on a smaller scale?
I have found from the ones that have called me and the conversations that I've started to have, it's definitely not been more elaborate. It's been more even keel, lower end. Like, we don't want to, we're not looking for all the big stuff. We don't want all the big stuff. And I don't think it's so much because they've been sitting down and thinking about it per se, other than they kind of had a better vision. They didn't know about all these extra possibilities. So when they started really picturing it, they were picturing it with what they knew. And so it's not as elaborate, but it's also more detailed. Like, they're coming in knowing a little bit more about what they want.
Sure.
We start having those conversations. No, you know what? I thought about this. I ahead of time. I don't want a photo booth, or, I thought about this ahead of time, and, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't want to do the money dance. Like they're coming to with ideas that oftentimes didn't come until 6 months, 7 months down the road. And so they're more in tune with what they've been thinking about.
It's interesting you mentioned the changing and tweaking. That's been almost a consistent theme with every wedding. I think there's only one that moved that has, like, everything's gonna be the same. There's nuances that are changing year plus out. They're like, we're gonna go and we're not gonna distance that. One common thread that I'm hearing, though, is the idea of making it a more of a family social. I have not had brides ask the question about, now, I want to be able to have music and have a good time and such, but I also want us to be able to talk, because this will be our time to get together, and we haven't been together and seen family and that idea of the social side of the day. It's always been there as an assumed, but now it's big enough where they're like, yeah, we want to be able to talk to grandma, and we want to be able to talk to the guests that are there. It's a little bit of a change that I was hearing in that. And it's like, interesting.
Well, they haven't really been able to be face to face with them. Even family members. I mean, it's horrible to say. My mom, she's in an assisted living facility. I have not seen my mom since, like, face to face, since before all this started.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was one of the things. I'd see her every other week or so, for whatever would be the case. And so other than, FaceTime, type of situation, it's not been happening. So that doesn't surprise me entirely that they're looking for more social. Now, one thing as you were talking, though, it got me thinking. I'm going to backtrack for just a moment. When we're talking about couples, and you talked about elaborate or more detailed, as I'm thinking about this, I'm seeing a difference whether it's next year or whether it's this year.
Okay.
My couples that were postponing and looking at this year, they've either stayed kind of the same, or, like I said, or the calls that have come in have been kind of more, we're just on the simple side. When it's next year, when it's been a postponement, and we're just going to wait till next year. You know what? We don't even want to mess with it. We're going to wait till next year. Or the calls that have been coming in for next year, that's on the different side. Like they're more like, you know what, we've got an extra year.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna make this bigger. Or you know what, this
Yeah.
year sucks, so we're just gonna make it a bigger party. And so I'm seeing more of that with regards to next year and the events for that.
See, and I thought that was going to be a case that people would do that, but I found people were more like, okay, so can we trim? Can we this? And it might be just where they are with their checkbook. They hadn't had a job for a few weeks. By the time most of them started moving their dates, we were into early April. So some had been out of work for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks already. Was it that we're looking at the checkbook and thinking, well, let's figure a way to cut. And now if things come back and we have a good fall, and that they may change their mind and come around and say, let's go crazy. Or is it a situation where I've just been unfortunate and I've been working, my couples weren't essential workers, and they just weren't doing their thing. I don't know. It's almost all about that one wedding that moved to 2021. They all were trimming some way, shape, or form. Some went to a smaller venue. A couple did change venues, but they went to for a smaller crowd. Photo booths were the things that has been cut the most, which is just so surprising to me. I didn't expect that, but yeah, those went by pretty quick. So I'm glad I don't have a ton of money stuck in the photo booths. Yes, I want those $10,000 photo booths. So we're going to sell a lot of them in 2020.
And again, 2020 events, yeah, scaling back. Looking for that. And I think also, you talked about your state and how they're at the 50%, and that's why PA is right now. And we're still in a situation where the dance floors are closed, and who knows when they're going to open. Mm-hmm. But I think there's also a scaling back from that standpoint of, the venues, at least around me, are not holding 400, 500 people, with the exception of 2 that come to mind. And so if I want to have 100 people, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it because of what they can hold to begin with. Mm-hmm. I might be allowed 250 people, but if the capacity is only 50%, that doesn't mean I get 250 if the room doesn't hold it. So yeah, that's one of the things I think a lot are working with too.
Grab that picture, Dan, when you get a chance. While we're here, we're talking. I'm going to have you show that one here in a minute. If you show it, then I can see it and they can see it. If I show it, you can't see it or they can't see it. So yeah, when the dance floors are going to be open, I think is going to be a big thing. Mike Lenstruff down in Iowa mentioned that he's now actually he went and put together a package, a non-dancing package, which I did a similar thing this past weekend. I had put the contract together after having a couple of conversations, and one gal who was an attorney, it's like, okay, so how do we do this? And her recommendation is that, okay, your contract has this option and this option. A person signs the contract, and knowing that if it can't have a dance, this is the option that we can go with, and if you can do everything, it's this option. So in essence, it's a 2-pronged contract for the day. So what Dan's showing right now is something someone had shared, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit about this, because we've had this conversation about when we can't have a dance floor, or we have to have the non-congregating or the social distancing. This is a venue, and I don't remember who shared it, and if I apologize, I don't remember. I was going to look that up before the show, and I ran out of time tonight. Just some things that this particular venue sent to the DJ. We think this is accurate. It could be just something somebody made up, but I mean, it's food for thought, because as we said before, venues have forever asked us to make the announcement, no glass on the dance floor. And this is along the lines of that the first one, DJs must enforce and maintain a safe 6-foot social distance between dancers that are not currently living in the same household for anyone on the dance floor. So myself and my kids and my wife, we could dance together, but my cousin, I got to have 6 feet between me. And the DJ's responsible for keeping that. Number 2, the DJ will promote messages that discourage people who are sick from attending the event. Yeah, by the time they get to hear me as the DJ, that's a really good time to say, oh, by the way, if you're sick, don't come tonight. Okay, that sounds just stupid. That's why there's a part of me wondering how accurate these actually are. And then the third one there, DJs will provide COVID prevention supplies to event staff. I'm guessing that if you have, DJ, MC, you've got your own thing, so you're not coming in there and asking for a face mask. That's what I would take that as. I don't know if that's legit.
Participants, those throws me.
The participants, I was wondering if that would be like your dancers, but then that should be event staff. So what are they assuming, that we're going to have the disposable face masks and we're going to hand these out to everybody? Because by the time they get to us at the dance of the event, they've already been in there for an hour or two sometimes. Really?
Yeah. Unless they're, I mean, even at asking us as they come in the door, like we're playing for cocktail, hey, here's a mask. Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
at some point along the road, that is definitely that. If we're taking that to being we're providing it for the guests, that's crossing a line. I think that should not be our responsibility there.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know how accurate that is. Somebody shared it on Facebook today, and I thought, this is a good food for thought, because even if it's a bunch of BS, there are going to be venues out there that are going to be thinking variations of this, especially the top one of 6 foot social distancing, and they're going to make it our responsibility. DJ Johnny mentions here, so last weekend went to a bar at the lake, and there was one person out of about 500 that showed up with a mask. The band was playing, nobody was keeping 6 foot, and it was business as usual. I saw the same thing Friday night. Went to a bar in one of the communities that I go and I help with the aim their lights and program their light shows and work with that. Went in there because they had a band outside and they were going to do the DJ, and they haven't done anything inside for 3 months. So the band was outside, and there's supposed to be a limit of 250 people. There were 300 to 400 people out there. And once it was over at 11 o'clock, they all came inside. So it was crowded and just cramped in there for no social distancing whatsoever. The only thing is, it was interesting. About half the people were wearing a mask. And it wasn't older people. It wasn't younger people. It wasn't men. It wasn't women. It's like, here's a 70-year-old husband and wife. She was wearing it and he wasn't. Here's a 40-year-old husband and wife. Then it was the opposite. She was wearing it, and he was wearing it, and she was. It was like there was just no rhyme or reason. I don't think I saw a couple there while I was putzing, where both of them were wearing a mask. It was one or the other. Whatever. So it's an interesting time, and that venue relationship will be, for some of us, is going to be tested, I'm sure, here as we come through in the next couple of months.
I think it's also one of these things we talk about being flexible. You need to be flexible ahead of time. Find out what their policies are going to be, find out what their rules are going to be, and have that conversation with them ahead of time. I think some people see, and I could share it again if we want to, but some people see where, the DJ is going to have to make announcements and stuff like that, and they take it to mean like every 5 minutes. Maybe the expectation from the venue is that you do it twice.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Yeah. How to clarify that?
To basically CYA, and that's why, listen, you do it. You made the announcement. We've made the announcement. We've done what we're going to do. Now it's out of our hands. Like we cannot control people.
Yeah.
We can tell them. The thing that I find funny though, especially with number one, is, I don't know who lives together.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to be in the house together. So, oh no, sir, that's not your wife.
Yes, you can't dance that close. Please spread it out.
Yeah.
I think there's that level of that's not being very realistic, but that's okay. I'm afraid that's the kind of stuff. DJ, can you keep them from jumping on the dance floor? Because downstairs there's things being knocked off the walls from all the jumping. Yeah, sure. I can play dance music and keep people from jumping. No problem.
Next thing here. Brown.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know people jumped so much to that song. I don't know. Sorry, Mr. Venue Manager. So, okay, let's move on. So today, I let's see. When we had the first report, probably about 3 weeks ago, with Zoom, because as you all well know, and if those of you watching this in 2022 and you're like, what world has changed since then? When the COVID thing hit, DJ started streaming. They were trying to stream on Facebook. We've been streaming shows with music forever, and we've had, within the Disc Jockey News, we've gotten a soft band, we've gotten a hard band. I've been days where I couldn't live stream. Facebook and YouTube both have their situations. YouTube is a little bit more forgiving if you're playing the right songs, because they have license agreements with many songs. So you may not be able to monetize the video, but you could stream the songs. Some of our music shows on Sunday morning, are no problem because somebody else is making the money off it. The Jonas Brothers video has over 7,000 views, like 7,500 views, and all that money went to the Jonas Brothers. Not that there was a ton of money, but I mean, it went to the Jonas Brothers or somebody in their camp. Facebook doesn't have the same licensing agreements, so they basically shut you down, and if they want, they will put a ban on you. So people then jumped over to Twitch. We've been hearing some rumors about Twitch that some of the accounts, and they're starting to police that stronger because Twitch is getting in trouble from the record labels. So that's on its way out. Then we heard rumors about Zoom. Probably the Zoom one came in before the Twitch one, actually. But they were saying Zoom, some people had been, their accounts were shut down because of streaming DJ dance parties via Zoom. So I sent a message to Zoom. It's like, hey, I want to put together a little educational thing on this for the DJ industry. Can somebody reach out to me? 4 weeks later. And when you send a thing to Zoom, every 2 days you get an email saying, hey, you're in our queue for our help. If it's been solved, click this button, so then we'll ignore you. And of course I never did. So every 2 days I get the thing where so today when I got the message back and it's like, oh my gosh, here's a number. Let's talk. So we chatted. Victor, I believe was the name. I don't remember what his name was. We chatted a little bit to find out if indeed DJs were losing their account. And that is indeed true, that there are DJs who have had their accounts, they've had their accounts shut down. It kind of reminded me of the Vimeo thing, how Vimeo basically said, oh, sorry, boom, you're done. There's the door. Nah, just you're done. We're not even going to show you where the door is. So that has happened. Most of the time, they were saying they're sending out warnings. Okay, because they have a guideline of what you can and can't do, and I'll do a screenshot for you guys in the video tomorrow. DJs have had this problem. We've done music shows and we haven't had a problem, but some have. If you follow that thread on my Facebook page, one of the gentlemen actually talked that he had gotten a notice from some legal notices from BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC or whatever it is, that he was to cease and desist, and they were going to be taking actions against him. So it is out there. Now, here's the kicker. There's two thoughts on this of how they got found out. The one from the kind of rumor mill is that DJs were so excited to use Zoom to do their things, they were putting their posts out on websites and saying, "Hey, come to my dance party." They put it on Facebook and they put it on Instagram and they put it on Twitter. And some people are thinking that maybe a spider followed that trail, and then they were able to find this open meeting and find this music, and that's how they got caught. According to Zoom, it's a better story than that. It's other DJs who are turning them in. That's how Zoom says they're catching most of these people. Because everything pretty much is a Zoom meeting, from my understanding. And again, for those of you who like to take risque photos and do risque meeting videos to people you know, yeah, Zoom has copies of everything, which would only make sense. You're using their thing. There's probably hard copies of it somewhere. So they have the ability to go back and see what was done. And there we are. They were able to find that DJ XYZ did live stream, used music, violated their guidelines, and they can decide to either give them a warning or do much more depending upon how they take the infraction. So,
wow.
DJs are turning in DJs.
You know, and to think that I'd say I'm surprised by that, I'm not.
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that science experiment they did where they had the monkeys in the cage and they had the ladder and there was a banana at the top of the ladder and the monkey would climb up and get the banana and yay, and then they started. Then they would have it so the monkey would climb up and then they would douse the monkeys with water, and after a while, then the monkeys would stop going up and getting to try and do that. And then after a period of time, they removed all the monkeys and they weren't doing the water or anything, but the monkeys would keep the monkeys from going up there. They kept pulling the monkey down, even though they had no idea why they were keeping him down from going and getting the banana. It's just they knew that they couldn't do it because there was something. DJs are kind of like that. We're going to find a way to keep everyone else down. We don't know why. We just will.
Now I almost feel bad for turning you in, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry to make you feel bad about that. Excellent. So that was that, and I'll do do a little bit more with looking at some of the things from Zoom, the actual post and such that he sent back, because he actually wrote up the conversation and sent it back to me for our use. So where does that
That was
leave
nice
us?
of him too.
Yeah, well, it definitely was. Only 2 months later than I expected it to be. So where does that leave us? Really, right now as we sit, Mixcloud Live seems to be the only thing that might be possible. That it isn't going to get us in trouble because you're paying for it. And I went back to Mixcloud Live and looked at it again today, and it looks like their free trial has now been extended to 90 days, which when we tried it to do some things, it seemed like it was a little rough. I didn't think the audio was that great, but we might try it again tomorrow night because we were thinking about doing a music show tomorrow night, but we will see. But as of right now, that's the only one that says it's a semi-legit live streaming service that will allow us to do copyright music.
I find it interesting I'd be curious to, rather I should say, to hear how your impressions are now. Because when you jumped on that in the very beginning, it was before they even officially sent out like notifications that they were doing it. It was kind of like you had to have a backway link into it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They would share it, and it was there, but it wasn't like they were promoting it. Maybe it's a better way to say,
Right?
Because it was probably maybe a good 2 weeks later before I ever got the email from Mixcloud saying, "Hey, we got this."
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if within that time period, if they have made some improvements to their servers, to their bandwidth, whatever, to improve their sound quality through the live stream.
And that'll be a good test, and that's something I definitely want to do, because doing music shows, even though we are a news source and we can do music shows and talk about the different songs and say, hey, here's the number one hit from da 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 da. Those are fun shows to do, to talk music. I mean, that's what we love music. That's why we're DJs. So we'll enjoy doing those shows. But if it's going to cost us a YouTube channel or a Facebook page, we can't afford to lose that. So hopefully things like Mixcloud would, and they would be better. But even Mixcloud, somebody shared today that their Mixcloud account, their upload side of their account has gotten blocked because of violations, copyright violations, by just going and making mixes that they used of regular songs and mix them together for that. So even Mixcloud is getting picked up with some things with that.
And I thought that was their workaround was the whole point of, yeah, they might be free, but between the subscription and the ads that they have was how they were trying to offset their
and I don't
licensing.
I don't know how the licensing when it came for the upload side of it, but that is supposed to be separate from the live stream side of it, which is what we would be utilizing. So we'll see how that works. And again, we're going to try to give that a try. Might try to do a version of that tomorrow night with, we're going to do an 80s show tomorrow night with Jay, Brian, and Nick Hahn. They're coming on. We're going to talk 80s music and try to find some of those hidden treasures that we kind of forget about and have some fun with that. And I think those three have got an eclectic enough. So I've got to set the guidelines for the show. It's got to be a song that I will say, oh yeah, I remember that. Because otherwise, if I don't say that, these guys will go deep, deep, deep. There's the track, the top 40 track that hit the charts. Then there's the one that they thought, well, let's put it in there because it might score and it may not. It might hit the charts and it probably hit the bottom half of the Hot 100. Then there's the tracks that they were like, these are artistic tracks. Let's put them on there in case. That's the ones those guys go for. Which for some artists I know those, but some artists I have no idea what. Well, yeah, it was released in South Boston in 1984 and on 2 different radio stations, and it was huge, just huge. Okay, did it get out of Boston? No, but it was huge in South Boston.
It was wicked. I love Nick and his picks that he does. If you're a promo only subscriber, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like you get his sampling and like a 20, it's like every couple months he puts it out. Half the time I scroll through there and I'm like, oh, I know that one. I don't know that one. I know that one. Like, oh, wait a minute, where'd that one come from? Yeah. So he does go deep. And I can imagine that, especially with Brian and his tendency or past history of creek diving.
Oh
It
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. When they start talking, oh, remember this old disco song from da 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 da, and then, oh yeah, remember that band when they would play in this, and it's like, but huh? I like pretty posies too. Sorry, that's the best I had because I couldn't follow their conversation whatsoever.
Maybe like, John, it's not Huey Lewis.
Exactly.
It's okay.
It's like, dude,
It'll still be okay.
stick to the Mobile Beat Top 200. That's I can handle it. You go too deep, and I'm gonna be like, what, huh? So another thing let's talk about cool things that we've been finding on Facebook and social media, because there's so much crap on that. It's just been so depressing. But one cool thing during this whole indoor lock-in thing is some of the content. And last week we talked about a gal who did kind of a cool thing. This week, and Sammy Hagar and what does he call his band or his guys? His crew. But Sammy Hagar, they've got his Red Rocker Facebook page, and they've been doing their COVID play. Sammy Hagar and the Sammy Hagar lockdown videos. And if you guys haven't checked those out, you got to definitely go check those out, because they have Michael Anthony, and I'm not sure who the other two guys are, but basically there's the four of them, and they're doing like cell phone video. And their microphones are not cell phone microphones. There is no way that this is being done. But they just did a kind of a toned down version of Right Now this past weekend or last week that they released. If you're into rock and roll, whether Sammy Hagar, Van Halen, what have you, they've done a couple of covers of other bands in this sequence, and I believe this is probably maybe 8 or 10 that they've done. Just some fun things. It really reminds me of Daryl's when Hall & Oates when they did Daryl's house or Daryl's fort or Daryl's treehouse or whatever the heck it was. Just little kind of things like that where it's less formal, but it's actually just a lot of fun to listen to and watch. So if you haven't checked that out, that's definitely something I would check out.
I have to do that. Little nudge myself. I found the website already, so now I just
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun. This past one you could watch in Sammy's glasses. You could see that he has like an iPad or something set right in front of him. There's just no way that that's the microphone in that iPad. It's like they sound, although when they do the and they do the echo of the Right Now. Maybe the other musicians did. They might have been using the microphone from their iPad, but yes, obviously not so much for Sammy.
You had to like watch the video and like blow it up. There's the microphone. I see it.
Yeah, that's what pretty much I did is I put that on and put it inside, because this was really really kind of cool. Yeah, okay, that was definitely that's the Sammy Hagar and the Circle at Home. Session number 8. So yeah, good stuff there. So anything else, Dan? You got anything?
Nothing I can think of offhand.
Okay.
We talked about a lot tonight. So
yeah.
And I think, John, you did hit on it with this last piece that you did. When you see something positive like that, share the crap out of it. Because there's moments like that are kind of nice, that are kind of, we all need those moments. Just whether something's going on in your immediate neighborhood, or whether something's going on across the country that maybe is something you don't agree with or don't stand for, or whatever happens to be the case. This adds some light. This adds some hope. This adds some smiles. And since it's the artist who's doing it, you're not going to get your Facebook slapped.
There is that too, yeah, because we're sharing someone else's video. But yeah,
it helps.
That it does. But yeah, there's some incredibly talented people who have been creating things during this time, and to be able to celebrate their skill and their ability. Somebody had asked earlier today, okay, when this is over, this whole staying at home, pretty much. When this is over, how are you going to get back to normal? Are you going to do what you did before? And how has this changed you beyond, the concern for health side of it? And as I'm looking at this, and it's like there are definitely going to be some things that I will be changing in what I do going forward. And it's not because of the health side of it. It's just that this has showing a person, as an example, I did a series of videos on your rates, raising your rate, lowering your rate, keeping it the same. I did all three arguments for you. I wasn't planning to change my rate structure going forward because it's like, this is where I've been. And I'm getting comfortable with that. As we've been going on with this, and I've been spending the time at home and doing things and enjoying the time with the family, it's like, my time on Saturdays is a premium. If I'm going to be taking that time away from my family, really, it isn't just a Saturday, it's the Saturday and Sunday because it's going to take a day to recover, what have you. If I'm going to do that, I'm not going to do it for anything but a premium rate because my time away from my family is worth that. And I hate to say it, it's probably worth more today as those days and years with my children start to go away as they grow up and go off to college and things. So that was one of the changes that I made as I went through my packaging last week with my DJ stuff, is added this, changed this, tweaked that, and made it so that I went up with the rates on these things across the board, because if I'm going to be taking that time away from family, I can smile a little bit more if I'm being compensated for it at a level that I feel is a fair level, as opposed to, well, how much can I drop the price to stay as competitive in the market as possible? Yeah, I'm just not going there anymore.
No, and I heard a long time ago, and it wasn't related to DJing at the time, but people will put up with a lot more when they're being paid well for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, think about those moments where it's just like, is this worth it? Is it something I want to deal with? Well, if I'm being paid enough, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. And we've all had those events where it's like, okay, so it's a last minute event. You know what? I'll do it for this, and we've dropped our rate down just to help them out and feel that. I can't tell you the number of times I've done things like that, and afterwards I hate myself. All of a sudden it's like it was a rainy 2 weeks. I took the event on Monday for a Saturday thing, and then Saturday is absolutely gorgeous, the first nice day of summer or whatever. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I could be doing anything, with the kids, if sitting around a campfire or whatever, watching a movie at home, cuddle up on the couch, anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's off topic, but just as long as we're talking about it. So other than that, I think we're good. Shows this week. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk monitors with Ben Stowe tomorrow night, whether in-ear monitors, basically as a DJ, and we're doing more of these systems where we're going to have to spread speakers out and covering an area and getting the speakers farther away from us. They're not going to be as loud as we typically are used to. That's one, again, getting back to grandma wants to be able to hear us talk. So we're going to need to be able to hear if we're doing some of our mixes. What do we use for monitors? So Ben's going to give us some options tomorrow night, whether it's in-ear monitors or different types of headphones that work well for monitors, or even small speakers that could be monitors for our DJ shows. That's going to be Ben's first show. And then with Brian, Jay, and myself, we're going to have Nick Hahn join us, and we're going to be talking 80s music and those forgotten hits. We'll be doing that tomorrow night and have some fun with that. Wednesday night, Dave and Jer are going to be there, and Jer has been doing a lot of unusual events, a lot of things for his kind of some of the businesses in his community. So they're going to talk a little bit about some of the other things that they're doing during this time instead of weddings, and kind of dig into that. And then MJ's doing a music and mixing show, and what was he talking about in that one? He's got it already scheduled here, but he'll be. Dave and Jer are going to go out at 9 o'clock Eastern, and MJ's going to go on at 10 o'clock Eastern Wednesday night. And let's see, MJ. The best DJ gear for you is what he'll be talking about. Probably getting into some of the controllers that have just been released here in the last 6 months, and which ones are the ones, because we get that question. It's like, okay, which one should I get? Should I get in the den in the world? Should I get the 3, they got the 4,000, the 7,000, 8,000, the Prime 2, or the Prime 4, the Prime 2. Which one should I get? Prime Go. So I think that's what MJ is going to cover Wednesday night.
Very cool.
And I think that's it. I think
Awesome.
that's it for us for tonight. So.
Okay. Well, on that note, we do want to thank you, of course, for taking time out of your night to join us. And again, maybe you learned how to be flexible. Maybe you learned to watch for John's video tomorrow about Zoom, or maybe you just learned, you know what, it's fun to look for some cool things on Facebook or just in the internet world and share the fun stuff out there with everybody else as well. Whatever happened to be the case, hopefully you enjoyed tonight and you got something out of it. And even if not, next Monday we're doing it again. So maybe we got another shot to make you happy then. So have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.